My colleague Blake was like, oh my God, she's so fit. And I heard myself say to him, yeah, and her perfume smells divine. And I remember thinking, it's probably time to come out. If you think about something like stand-up comedy, going out into a room full of like 200 drunk, rowdy people on a Saturday night at the Comedy Store, and I'm there as like a little 23-year-old going, you need to listen to my story. Well, I've actually got a little bone to pick with Mark Bittlestone. Yes, and you. Because I thought, how lovely that he's nominated me. I might go and have a watch of his episode, see what he says about me.
Yeah.
Well. Oh my, I know you're going to clip that up.
That's the cliffhanger at the end of the trailer.
God's sake.
Hello and welcome back to the queerest podcast telling the fiercest stories. This is Queer Talker and I'm Ben Cicchetti. Before we get to my conversation with the incredible and the hilarious Lee Peart, I've got a very quick favor to ask. Wherever you are watching or listening to this episode, hit that subscribe button. It's one click and it's going to make a massive difference. It's going to allow me to grow this podcast and it's going to allow me to bring you the best and the queerest episodes every single time. So in advance, thank you. Now to my conversation with Lee. Lee, as always, we are starting with our Queer Panic rapid fire questions. You just respond with the first thing that comes to mind. Starting with, what was the first album you ever owned?
You're not going to believe me, but I'm pretty sure it was The Offspring. I was going through something. I was like, I'm going to be like an emo. I'm going to be like, it's not my brand at all, but I'm pretty sure I bought that album from HMV.
Nice. The Pretty Fly for a White Guy era.
Yeah, Original Prankster. What's the other one? There's one that I really like. I might go listen to it after this, actually.
There we go. Reignite.
You would never have guessed The Offspring, but that was it.
It's the first time they've come up on this. It's normally like Spice Girls or something like that. The Offspring is
what can I say? I'm mass.
If you had to lip sync for your life, what song would you choose?
I will say this. My friends think I'm very odd because I have this weird thing where I can remember lyrics. Like it's probably a form of something, but so I can lip sync to a lot of things.
Interesting.
But if I had to choose, it would be definitely probably an Adele song. It would probably be like Rolling in the Deep or Someone Like You, or Skyfall, or Melt My Heart to Stone, or When We Were Young, or Take It All, or Easy on Me. You know, the list goes on.
Wow. It would be epic.
It would be epic, yeah. Or I would, maybe something like, if it was a bit more musical theatre, maybe something like She Used to Be Mine from Waitress. Love that song.
Great choice. Okay, well, I have a playlist on Spotify, so I get to add those. I'm going to pick my favourite of your Adele choices, and then I'll add the Waitress song as well. What is your favourite queer movie or TV show?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I don't know if it's kind of classed as a queer show, although I personally think it is now because it was embraced by a lot of the gays. I'm going to say The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow. And It's become a kind of cult classic. And I actually feel like because I watched The Comeback when it first came out, which I think was in like 2005, I want to say. It's just after Friends had finished. And I remember being like 15 at the time, absolutely loving the show. Thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And no one really understood it and got it at the time. And then years later, it became a bit of a cult. And I remember being like, oh, I was there from the start. So The Comeback. I think that also would be my mastermind question. If I was ever going to go on Mastermind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I had known that because I now would like throw out a bunch of questions on it.
Oh, God. I'm glad that you didn't.
Who is your ultimate queer icon?
Probably, icon's a bit of a weird word for him, but probably someone like Matthew Shepard. And, you know, the play like the Laramie Project was all inspired, and he was tragically murdered years ago, and he was the guy, for people who don't know, they tied him to a fence in Wyoming, and his kind of his murder basically sparked a kind of ripple effect across the world, and people started to, and it really helped push, I think, gay rights and the way people just treat and see gay people. So Matthew Shepard, or even his mum, who's got odd name escapes me now, but Judy, I think, Judy Shepard, and she set up the Matthew Shepard Foundation. So someone like him, I would say.
I love that. That's a great choice. You are obviously also a podcaster. You host a podcast to demystify wine / give us all an excuse to drink more wine. So what is your go-to white, red, or rosé?
I just think that's such an impossible question, because I need to know where I am, the setting, the scenario. If it's a scorching hot day, I'm probably not going to have a glass of Malbec. But I will try and answer it. And if I have to whittle one down, I've at the minute I'm feeling a red. I'm really feeling a red. So I'd probably go for a Malbec or a Pinot Noir. But again, if it's nice and sunny, we're talking a nice pale rosé. If I'm out with friends having dinner, probably a white. But yeah, at the minute, I think if I really had to choose, I'd have red.
Yeah. There's something about the winter months is when I tend to drink red. It just comes October comes and suddenly I just switch. So I'm
but I have, and one thing that the podcast has taught me is I have got, Pinot Noir I never really used to have, but because it's so much lighter, I actually have now been having that more in if it's in the daytime. God. I have that in the day. It's fine. Yeah. It's a nice morning beverage. Because, I used to be like, oh, red puts me to sleep. But actually, it was because I was drinking heavy reds. So, yeah. And that's what the podcast has taught me. I can drink whenever I like. Please drink responsibly. This is coffee. This is coffee from the mug. Yeah. Imagine if you could just see red wine in this mug.
Shout out to Mark Biddlestone, who nominated you to be on this podcast. So now it's your turn. Who is one person you...
I've actually got a little bone to pick with Mark Biddlestone. Yes, and you. Because I thought, how lovely that he's nominated me. I might go and have a watch of his episode, see what he says about me.
Yeah.
Well, now I realise it's all a ruse to get Alan Carr on the podcast. I'm basically Sunita at this point, aren't I?
Shocking.
I text Mark. I said, well, thanks for the nomination, Mark. I said, he might get Alan. So I'm not going to nominate Alan out of spite.
No, that is totally fair.
So I have to nominate a gay comedian, a queer comedian.
Queer anything.
I'm queer anything. I'm going to stick to the comedians. I'm going to nominate Morgan Rees. Have you had him on?
Brilliant. I haven't, no.
Really nice guy. Very good comic. Yeah. Okay. Nominate Morgan Rees. Because he might be able to get you Jade Adams. I was sat there. This is what I was like as I was watching it. I was smiling. I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, okay. I'm getting so many. Honestly, I get so many. Hi Lee, could you ask Alan if he fancies in this? I'm like, he does have an agent, and it is not me. I'm like, please just be aware of this. But yes, no, I'll nominate, and I love Mark Biddlestone, and I'll nominate Morgan Rees, great comedian, great guy.
Okay, and then finally, what is one word you would use to describe your childhood?
Playful.
Okay, I like
playful.
That. I like that, and we can
dive
quite
a bit vivid deeper. Imagination.
Okay, because long-term listeners know that I have this theory that to understand an LGBTQ plus person as an adult, you do have to understand them as a young person first. And because you say playful, you say imagination. What should I know about you as a child or a teenager to understand the Lee that sits in front of me today?
Well, I was always obsessed with magic. So I loved anything magical. I was obsessed with Mary Poppins. So,
Yeah.
like, people like in primary school, people would be like, Lee, and I'd be like, please call me Mary. Like, I was obsessed with, but the reason is I think I wanted to fly. So I always remember, like, my mum and dad had this like built-in barbecue in the back garden. And I used to jump off that thinking I was like Peter Pan or I like broomsticks. And then I think I just felt like Mary Poppins was as close to being able to. And the umbrella. So I was obsessed with like umbrellas. My mum apparently once didn't let me buy this umbrella at a car boot sale that looked exactly like the Mary Poppins one. And apparently I bawled my eyes out that the woman and the car boot sale was like, he can have it for free. She's
Wow.
causing a scene. Really good tip if you're ever at a car boot sale and you want something for free. If you don't want to spend that 50p. And so, yeah, I was always kind of into magic. I think I remember my teacher in primary school making me a magic wand. I was like, anything magical, Disney, loved all that. Like, Sleeping Beauty, loved the Three Good Fairies, was obsessed with them. I was just obsessed with magic. Like, and then like as a teenager, I loved Charmed. Again, magic. I love Sabrina the Teenage Witch. The Worst Witch. Anything to do with magic, I was in. I was totally in. And then as a teenager, I kind of, I started to get into drama and stuff. And then I started to kind of make people laugh and remember like doing acting little skits in drama club and people laughing at it at the school thing, and I started to kind of get confidence with that. So that as a teenager, but I was also head boy at school, so I had different personas. I used to kind of like probably switch between personas. So sometimes it would be like the kind of silly class clown, and then other times it would be like, how dare you speak to me, you mere mortals. Like, and I remember I've said this story before, but as head boy, I was corrupt. I was totally mad on power. It's probably the power thing. I couldn't have it with magic, so I wanted like power in a different kind of sense. So, I was like, I used to start calling the teachers by their first names. I was 15 years
They must
old.
have
And
loved you.
I know. Well, do you know what, though? And this isn't delusional. They kind of did, but it was kind of that they kind of like did enjoy me because I think I was always in kind of a character. But then at times we're like, what is going on? Because I just used to saunter around. I used to like walk around in break around the corridors with a mug of hot chocolate. And I'd be like, morning, Joan. And people would be like, what? And it was weird. I mean, it was weird, but I was kind of liked. I was never really disliked at school. I was never like massively popular, but I wasn't you said at the time, I wasn't one of the geeks. And so I was kind of in between. And then like the popular kids kind of liked me. So sometimes I'd hang out with them if I fancied it. Other times not. So I was always, I do remember being liked. I don't like, not everyone liked me. I'm not like delusional where I was the most popular kid in school, but I remember like it not massively being a hard time, really.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of almost switching personas and switching kind of the character, quote unquote, that you were playing. Do you think that was from an entertainment perspective and that was kind of the entertainer in you? Or do you think that was a protectiveness and you were hiding the real Lee behind kind of those personas?
I think it's probably more the latter, but yeah, I think it was a bit of both. But yeah, there was definitely weird persona. Like there was, it took me a while to realize like which kind of persona I was. And it would change depending on the environment. But I still think I do that to a weird way. Like, not change who I am, but you adapt. I always remember from an early age, I used to be able to tell very quickly what made different people laugh. So, like, for example, Annabelle might like silly humor, but Holly might like dry humor, or like, And I still think I do that with new people where I'm like, the minute I kind of know what makes them laugh or what kind of style of comedy they have, I'll adapt it to them. So maybe it was just that form of where it was like, who am I talking to in this situation? And yeah, a bit like a chameleon type thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But
And then
yeah, it
if you
was
take
definitely
yourself,
some sort of like I was at one point as the head boy, I felt like a dictator, and I've always said, for dictators, it's probably quite fun for them. It's the people around them that suffer, but I was having a great time.
okay, we'll remember that
I
if you
look
ever
at
run for
these.
office.
I know. Well, I know. No, this is the thing. I now don't volunteer for power because it can very quickly consume me. I'm quite aware of it. I think it's a healthy thing to be like, you know. But I sometimes look at these dictators and I think, I get it. I get it.
They're living their best life.
Oh my! I know you're going to clip that up. I look at these dictators and I just think, yes, I understand.
That's the cliffhanger at the end of the trailer.
God's sake.
But I mean, if you take yourself back to that time, do you remember the first like LGBTQ plus person you became aware of, either in real life or through media, and how that kind of made you feel in yourself?
I remember there weren't an LGBTQ plus person, but I remember a bit of a gay awakening. I think was Seth Cohen from the OC, played by Adam Brody. I remember like really fancying him and really loving his clothes. I think probably the main one I remember distinctly, like late as a teenager, staying up late watching Graham Norton, like So Graham Norton. Do you remember when Graham Norton was the most
4.
audacious, filthy, like gay man? And now he's like quite mainstream. But I remember seeing an interview with him recently where he was like, I had to stop being that because when you are in your 50s, bringing out dildos and stuff, it is a bit like, and I thought, oh yeah, that's actually a really good point. But I remember back in the day when, Graham must have been my age and, he had that audacious, like filthy, but brilliant chat show on Channel 4. I think that was probably the first time where I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be Graham Norton. And then like Will and Grace was a massive, massive thing. Like I absolutely adore Will and Grace. And I think that was a huge thing. I remember actually like my mum laughing a lot at Jack from Will and Grace. And I was thinking, oh, maybe it's not so bad. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe it's okay.
That is important, those sorts of shows that kind of give people that avenue to have people around you. I think they talk about that a lot, right? I remember when Heartstopper came out, there was a lot of people who watched it with their parents to see how their parents might react to certain components of it. So I do get that totally.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't see the other series of Heartstoppers because there's been like 4 or 5 now, hasn't there? But yeah, I remember the first one. But I kind of watched it as a bit of a bitter man where I was like, of course they're having a lovely time. Of course they're not getting beaten up.
It was a thing. There was a lot of people, like, I'm approaching 40 this year. A lot of people like my generation where it was like, there was that slight bitterness to it. There was that feeling of loss of like, oh, we didn't get to experience that. Like we didn't,
like jealousy.
Anyway, get that teenage love. It wasn't until
I couldn't. 20s. I was too busy being a dictator. I was too busy making the lives of the Humberston School students miserable. I mean, one of my decrees, and I called them decrees, was that prefects didn't have to queue for lunch. That was one of my first things. It's so elitist. I was like, we shouldn't have to queue. We're so busy. We skip the queue. No wonder I wasn't having a love story. I was too busy, like, ruining people's lives.
Another clip. There we go.
Oh, God. Yeah, great.
I guess taking yourself back to that time, do you remember when you then first felt that first spark inside yourself and thought, that first feeling of kind of your inner queerness, and then how that felt within yourself?
I don't really remember a specific time. I came out late. I tell this story on stage, but I remember, and this isn't like a joke or anything, it is true. I remember I used to work at Tesco. And again, the power went to my head there. I became customer service and I had like supervisor rights, and I just was a
Wow.
nightmare. I would go like down the tills and be like, be careful of your double scanning, Jane. And it'd be like, Jane would be like this 60-year-old woman who's worked there for years, and she's got this 18-year-old boy in a blazer who thinks he's it. But I remember then it was in Manchester, and I saw this woman come into Tesco, and she like objectively was gorgeous. She had like big boobs. She like smelled amazing. Her hair was like, she just was stunning. And the only thing I thought was, no, my colleague Blake was like, oh my God, she's so fit. And I heard myself say to him, yeah, and her perfume smells divine. And I remember thinking, it's probably time to come out, if that's the only thing you pick up on. So that was like the main one. And then the next day I came out to my parents. But yeah, I don't remember. It was kind of a gradual process, because I sometimes think when you repress it, which I think I did I used to say I was asexual. But I was like, I'm asexual. But then I just realized like no one wanted to fuck me. So I was just like, I just wasn't having sex. Like, you're not asexual. Like, asexual is not wanting it. And I was like, oh, I'm just not getting it. There's a difference. I think it was. I think it was like a gradual process. It was, but that was the light bulb moment where it's like, oh, that's time to come out. I'd already come out to a few people, but like to my parents properly. And I also remember thinking when I did comedy, I remember thinking, I need to come out because I'm going to start talking about this on stage, and I can't not be like, I can't go, oh, I'm a character act and playing a gay man. Like, I had to, because people still do come up to me and go, so are you really gay? Are you really gay? And I'm like, do you think I just, weird.
So when you obviously mentioned, and we kind of touched on it a few times, kind of humor has clearly been such a huge part of your experience, meaning it feels like you found comedy at school and you used comedy. When did it first feel like it was going to be such a big part of kind of who you are in what you do in your identity? And was it something you kind of tapped into as you kind of navigated the world as, a young gay man?
Yeah, I think comedy definitely. And I went through a bit of I used to dress in like shirts and cravats and that, but I was like 23, 24. So I used to really dress up on stage. And I think that was part of the kind of armor, and it was part of like exploring the gay stuff. But my 20s was definitely like when I was, exploring what it meant to be gay. And I was living in Manchester, so like there was no better city or no better place than Canal Street on Manchester, where I just had the wildest of times. But like, started to, and stand-up comedy definitely shaped the identity as a gay man. But it probably wasn't until maybe like 25, 26 when I started to go, oh, this is who I am. I started to settle into, and it sounds stupid, but I always remember back in the day, I used to get furious, like seething with rage, if like a strand of hair happened to not be in place. And I used to go out coiffured, like completely pristine. And if anything went wrong, like if someone went to me like, oh, I mean, I still don't like it when someone like messes my hair up now, but I would easily just run my fingers through my hair now and be like, whatever, and just move it back. But if someone did that to me back in the day, I honestly, it would like ruin my night. And I always think that probably was because I still wasn't 100% comfortable in myself. Yeah. Whereas now, like the other day, I turned up to a bloody press night, and I decided to cycle there, and I got a line bike. It was pissing it down with rain, and halfway through, I was just like, "Oh fuck it, I'm going to carry on." Sodden wet. Turn up at this press night, soaking. They're like, could we do a quick interview with you? Because sometimes you get invited and then you have to like, you have to say, I'm so excited for the show or whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm dripping wet, but yeah, whatever. So, and I look back at the footage and I'm like, Well, that would never have happened. That would
Yeah.
never have happened back in the day. Whereas now I'm like, yeah, I'm dripping wet, but yeah, whatever. And I think that's just basically being more secure in yourself.
Yeah. When did that happen, do you think? When did you think you felt that kind of that kind of, oh, this is authentically me now. I'm not putting any kind of persona on, and then confident enough to just bring it and just be it every single day?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. It must be late 20s. It was definitely before like my 30s and stuff. I remember as well, I used to walk down the street and like people would kind of shout things at me, and they don't really do that anymore. And if they do,
Mm,
it's quite rare. And I think for two reasons. One, because I do still think we have advanced. Sometimes I do think, oh God, it's getting worse. But
yeah.
I also think that I just probably exude this I am who I am type vibe. Whereas before I was probably a little bit skinnier.
Yeah.
I was a little bit kind of meek and mild. Um, so I think stand up, I mean, if you think about something like stand up comedy, going out into a room full of like 200 drunk, rowdy people on a Saturday night at the Comedy Store, and I'm there as like a little 23-year-old going, you need to listen to my story. That really does kind of set you up for you build your armor in that. But so yeah, I think I probably exude it more. Like I do. People say I give off this kind of like don't fuck with me energy. Um, Not in like a bad way, not in like
Yeah.
a dictator prefect way. um, but and I think it's because I'm just like so comfortable in. I mean, when you meet someone who's so comfortable in themselves, it can, if you're not, be quite intimidating, I imagine.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think stand-up comedy is maybe do that because you are just yourself on stage. Again, unless you're playing a character act, you're actually a heightened version of yourself.
Yeah. How did you get started in comedy then? I'm so curious as to like, how did because it's such a, I talked to Mark a little bit about this. Like, how did you kind of get started and how did you find that kind of confidence? To your point, you're standing up on stage and you don't know how people are going to react. Like, I can't imagine just standing up on stage and not knowing, people may just not laugh at all. Like, how did you get started and navigate that world to where you are today?
Well, I was at the University of Salford and I joined I went to like Freshers Fair, so the society, and I joined a stand-up society, but that never ended up happening, but I'd written like 5 minutes of material. And the first time I ever did a gig, it went well, and I always say if it didn't go well, I would have probably quit. I'm such a quitter. Like I am like, if something is mildly discomforting or, discomforting, uncomfortable, if it's a little bit, oh no, not for me. Like I am done with it. And so the first few went well, which meant that when it didn't go well, I had the evidence to go, I'm not terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
my biggest fear was thinking, I imagine if I found out everyone's like, when is he going to quit? Like, I would be horrified.
Yeah.
And because I'm quite aware, I'm quite self-aware of things. Like, I know when things go bad and when things go good. So I kind of fell into it that way. And then I just like the stand-up circuit in Manchester was just brilliant, Northwest stand-up circuit. So, started with a load of, and when you start out, you have other comic friends who have started out, which you all do open spot gigs together. I remember doing a gig for a guy called Brian Malcolm, and it was like somewhere in Burscough in the north, and it was like everyone was doing 5 minutes. We were all new, and then someone at the end was still new, but he did 10. It was like, oh God, if you could ever do the 10 minutes, wow. And I remember mine going well, and I saw a post on Facebook like a few days later, and someone had like said how like kind of done a review and pointed me out, and I remember being like, oh, this is it, stardom awaits. And So those kind of things allowed me to kind of keep going with it. And then like you just start getting paid. And it was just such a simple thing where it was like, I'm not getting acting work, I'm getting comedy work. So I was alongside working at Tesco, I was, you know, going and doing gigs, and that's where people go. Like, I was chatting to Tom Allen actually the other day, and we were talking about like work ethic and stuff, and we were like, we've put the work in. Like, I've sat at Burnley train station at 1 a.m. in the morning, like waiting for the last train home after I've been paid £10 expenses for a gig of doing 5 minutes in front of 12 people. I've put those kind of work, that work in where you've grafted so long. So yeah, it kind of went from there. But then I had a bit of a break from it, and I think I remember specifically that there's a comedy club called Hot Water Comedy. People will know it in Liverpool. Huge comedy club now. Back in the day, back in my day, it used to be a pull-up banner at the Holiday Inn, and then they moved to another venue. Now they're like taking over the world practically, or the world of Liverpool, but they're huge online, and not in a dictator way. No, I wish. And I remember doing some new material because I used to get really nervous. And I remember doing new material, and I remember specifically going on to do this new material, and I thought to myself, I know I said to the audience, I said, "Oh, just to let you know, like this could be shit." I was like, "This could be shit," and they all relaxed. I saw them all relax. It was the weirdest thing. I was telling them it could be terrible, but I realized afterwards, I was like, I was in charge. It's like being in a car with someone who's nervous driver. Like you are then nervous. Or if you're watching a singing competition and the girl starts singing "I Will Always Love You," but she's wobbling at the notes before, you're thinking, how's she going to be at the crescendo? You know, so you sat there like, oh God, it's coming. So I remember distinctly going, oh God, it actually doesn't matter. And the minute you let that go, that's when I just relaxed into myself and became a better comedian. Because we all can still have bad gigs. I mean, it's rare now in the sense that you don't die a death, but like back in the day, it could just be awful. And I used to get worked up, and now I'm just like, oh God, okay, this could be bad. Who gives a shit? You know? Well, it's true.
But it's true.
Like,
yeah, and also I can see the logic behind if I sit down in a crowd and it's very obvious the comedian is nervous, or they say they're nervous, or there's anything, you're kind of like, well, if they're nervous, then how should I feel about it? Whereas that kind of immediately kind of putting people at ease and saying, you know, we're trying something different. This could be good. This could be terrible. I can see how that would instantly relax people.
yeah, totally. And I've seen, I love comedians where you watch them and because I'm high status on stage. So I'm a bit like, I'm here, I'm owning the stage.
Yeah.
But there are some low status comedians. But even then, I love the ones that kind of go like, all right, yeah. And you're like, and then they go, don't worry, I am good. And like, even saying that, people go like, oh, this man, like, he knows what he's doing, or she knows what she's doing. So yeah.
And do you think, I guess
what the question was? I'm so sorry, I baffle on
But I'm guessing that a lot of those early experiences, those 5-minute gigs that, you know, because it's one thing to sit down and know you've got, you know, as a viewer, I sit down, I know I've got an hour and a half of this comedian who's going to entertain me. But to have to be funny in 5 minutes, that must be a very different skill than a hour and a half or an hour set where you know you've got time to build.
No, it's probably the other way around. Like the longer is often harder, because that hour and a half is sustaining the audience. 5 minutes now, I mean, 5 minutes, you'd just be like, 5 minutes. But 5 minutes back in the day was your best stuff, your most strongest stuff. And yeah, now it would be like actually holding on to an audience for that long is, it can be quite difficult. But the difficulty is when you're new, you don't know what's good. So you might have 5 minutes, but two of those minutes might be great material. But then that's the same with an hour and a half. You might have an hour and a half, but an hour and 20 is strong. And then you've got 10 minutes of But you soon come to realize that, and you evolve. You go from 5, then you do a 10, then you do 15, then you do 20s, opening 20s, closing, blah blah blah, and then you work up to an hour show and emceeing as well, because I MC all the time now. Like I do a lot. I get booked quite often as an MC, and I love it. Some acts like hate it, but back in the day, I used to be terrified because MCing was like bouncing off the crowd. Like I just used to come on, I'd do my set stuff. It was like reading off a script essentially. Whereas now, like I just love it because you go, oh, there'll always be something quite funny happening. But back when I was new, if someone even shouted something out, I'd be like, oh God, what's this going to be? Like, it just, I hadn't planned for anyone interrupting.
And do you feel any kind of pressure to be, you know, as a gay comedian, I guess, do you feel any pressure to be the right kind of gay comic or fit a certain mold? Or are you just able to just be you know what's going to make people laugh, and therefore you're just going to be yourself?
I get annoyed because I get, you sound like Tom Allen. You remind me of Alan Carr. You've got a bit of a Julian Clariness about you. You've got, and it really annoys me because there are like straight men who will go on, and I'm like, well, they're just like Peter Kay, but no one's saying that to them. Like, so you often get like lazy comparisons. So sometimes I get like a bit. I don't feel pressure, but sometimes like I feel pressure not to talk about gay stuff. Because that really annoys me. Because I'm like, they're like, oh, you just talk about being gay. And I'm like, actually, that material I just spoke about was dating. It just so happens that I'm dating a guy. So therefore, you're like, it's being about being gay. But no one who talks about dating as a straight man, people go, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it annoys me. Like, I talked about going to the gym. Oh, that gay stuff. It's like, no, I just saying it. There was a guy in the gym I fancied. I'm not talking about being gay. Like, I do talk about being gay and coming out. But so sometimes I get annoyed at that, where it's like, that annoys me because I was like, actually, I'm not talking about that. You're just taking from that.
And then obviously you move between so many different spaces, right? You move from being on stage as either an MC or a stand-up comic to and queer spaces to mainstream TV to podcasting. Do you ever feel like you're having to kind of code switch between them, or have you reached a point where it's just, I'm just me and I'm just going to come and give you me?
Well, mostly the latter, but you always kind of get the energy of for what a thing is. So when I'm warming up for Loose Women or Strictly Come Dancing, it's very different to doing a nighttime comedy club on a Saturday night, you know. So you switch in terms of that, but you're still the same. But yeah, you might just be a little bit more corporate, or you might be a little bit more, you might swear a bit more. You might, when I did radio, for example, there are things that you probably wouldn't say that you would say on a podcast. So, but that, I think, but isn't that life? Isn't that like, you know, I was in a church today for a christening, and all of a sudden you're a little bit more, you know, professional, as opposed to if I was in a restaurant.
Yeah, I think we all do it, right? I think about how I am in my day life to be how I am being on this to how I am in the office, right? We all kind of switch to the environments we're in, but at the center of it, we're always still kind of our core self.
Well, what I used to do as well back in the day is, because a lot of people will hide themselves at the workplace, like be a bit more like straighter. I used to get more gay. I used to get camper because often when I had managers, they just didn't know how to deal with it. So it was like the other way, where it'd be like, and you'd go, oh yeah, do it. It was terrible, really. But I used to be like, how dare you? Like, oh, what? And they'd be like, oh, it's fine, because they just did not know how to deal with that. So I was the other way sometimes. I would go like really like, hi everyone, and it would almost be like, I don't know. I mean, this wasn't like the motivation, but I sometimes wonder whether the subconscious of it was if I'm so gay, they'd have to just deal with me because it would almost look homophobic if they didn't. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, take me as I am. Yeah, sure. I remember getting taken off a job actually years ago. I used to do like promo work, and actually happened to be a Russian client. And looking back, I was thinking, oh, okay. And she said something like, we don't want Lee on the job. We really want, what we were looking for is someone because it was like for Google, and I was working like doing this like Google masterclass, me and
Okay.
this other girl, and with like young people. And she said, we really want someone that the young people can aspire to and look up to. And they got rid of me. And that was basically code for
Yeah.
see you later. But yeah, not everyone like that, but yeah.
And we've touched on it a couple of times. You do host a fabulous podcast with he who must not be now named, called Bottoms
No,
Up.
he can.
I'm super curious, as a fellow podcaster, kind of how that came together, and kind of if there's been like, we've touched on wine, and kind of if there's been a big wine epiphany, or just kind of how it all came together and why it was kind of the right time to do that podcast.
So, yeah, me and Alan Carr, we host Bottoms Up with Alan Carr and Lee Peart, and it is a wine tasting kind of odyssey, journey, gossip, wine. And we're really good friends. Everyone thinks we're in a relationship. We're not.
Okay.
But we're really good friends. And last year we went to Cape Town together, and we went to do some wine tasting, had the best time. And while we were sat wine tasting, we were like, this should be a podcast. Like, it's good, like, blah, blah, blah. Nothing really came of it, but we kind of kept going back to it. And then he was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. So he kind of spoke to his agent and whatever and whatnot, spoke to a production company. And then it all came about literally just after Traitors had finished. We started it, we launched it. And it's going really well. So we claim the premise is we drink so much wine and we know so little about it. And so we're kind of trying to culture ourselves a little bit more. And he's brilliant. He's like, I think, one of the funniest men alive. And so we just sit and we have an absolute laugh, like two mates gossiping. And we bring in wine experts who can try along the way to give us a bit of take-home information.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of came about just through an idea that sparked. And then the thing about Alan is, the great thing about Alan is, he is Alan Carr. So if he says, I want to do this, most production companies will go, okay. If it was me and I was approaching, someone might have been like, oh, we're not sure about this. I mean, look at me, for God's sake. I can't even get the sun out of my top.
Tom's just going whiter and whiter.
People who are listening to this podcast will have now switched to audio just to see the top. And it's like I'm glowing. Do you know at the end of Hercules when he becomes a god? That's how I feel.
It's slowly like building. By the time we get the finish, it'll be fully in glow.
Yeah. So they made it happen in that way.
I think it's great because I think you said, I think it was on one of the episodes, you talked about there's kind of weird snobbery around wine, in that when you go into a restaurant, you would have no issues with kind of asking about a certain food or a certain meal, whereas you would feel uncomfortable talking about certain wines. So I actually love that style of podcast, where it's kind of, it's super entertaining, but also there is something about it. You are unlocking something for other people and, demystifying something that can feel quite protected.
Yeah, and we didn't want it to just turn into, and sometimes it does, we didn't want it, though, to turn into like just two mates having a chat and happening to have wine as well. So I'm very conscious, and as is Alan, of at least giving a bit of take-home information.
Yeah.
And so that's what we kind of wanted to do in terms of, we don't just want to sit there and basically just drink wine all the time. We want to at least go, oh, here's a little hack that you can take home with you, or here's a little fact and things like that, So yeah, that was that is something that we want to kind of keep along the way. And then we've got like guests that are coming on, and they might have their own wine, or they just love wine. Like Tom Allen's coming on this week, actually. I don't know when this podcast drops, but he might have already been on. But and so we're always like, he's a wine connoisseur. But we had like Olivia Atwood. She's a bit of a party girl, so we had her for our New Year's thing. But mostly we have like wine experts, so people from the world of wine who basically are our teachers.
I love it. I think it's a great podcast. Everyone should check it out.
Thanks.
And as we approach the full glow up moment for those who are watching, our final question.
This is almost like a timer for me, isn't it? It's like I've done it like once the sun hits, I'm gone.
Almost full done. Yeah. Well, we started this conversation obviously talking about young Lee. So let's revisit him. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? And would it be different if I just said, what advice would you give to a young LGBTQ plus person today in 2026?
If I was going to give a young Lee a piece of advice, I would say invest in paper straws. They're really going to become quite a big thing.
Yeah.
I would say put your money in that. No, I would say a piece of advice for young Lee. I actually would say be better with money. I was terrible in my 20s with money. Don't just be frivolous with it. What was the other question about LGBT?
Just advice to young LGBTQ plus people today as they navigate the world we live in.
You often feel like it's you and you're the first one that's had this journey. And I would say when I was younger, I met older gay men who like mentored me. There's a wonderful man called Adam Zane, who is a director and an actor who's in Queer as Folk, but he directs and writes a lot of his stuff now in a lot of theatres. Amazing. And I worked with him on quite a few plays back in the day. He was one of the people that introduced me to like Matthew Shepard and stuff like that. So I would say listen to stories of people who have come before you. That's the advice I would give, and understand the journey it took.
I love that. That's great advice. Well, we have reached full glow up moment for those that are watching.
And now the sun is actually, I could actually just sit. Yeah, I am being blinded. I could have done this actually, but now it's really in my face. I know.
Those that are wondering.
No, imagine if I turn the camera around and it's just a massive ring light that I've just been moving.
Slowly lifting up behind you.
It's because in my kitchen, I've got these massive windows and it just beams through. But actually, and it's quite nice. In the summer, it's horrific. It's like a greenhouse.
Well, we've all
got problems. We've all got problems with my massive windows. God, don't you hate it when your windows are massive?
Look, this has been brilliant. I've really appreciated this. It's been so interesting to get to know you more. I'm always fascinated by people's kind of journeys. I'm fascinated by comedy. You will never catch me even trying to do a 5-minute comedy set, but I'm fascinated by it. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I really appreciate you putting up with the glow up as it kind of lifted itself up through you. And yeah, just thank you for being on Queer Talk with me
What can I say? I glow.